Hello there, welcome to Sabertruck Gaming, where we always take the high ground. Can you guess what the first Nintendo console I ever had was? No, it actually wasn't the SNES, it was a Nintendo Game Boy. But the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES, was the first home console I ever had. Prior to this, and of course the aforementioned Game Boy, I'd only really had things like the Commodore 64. So the Super Nintendo Entertainment System really brought me some of the first and best video games I would ever play. This 16-bit console was one of the finest consoles ever made and features games which are still being re-released regularly to this day. Games which are absolute classics. Hell, games that have movies featured after them, as well as games that convert iconic movies into games. And with this massive catalogue of games, it's time for us to do a 6 of the best SNES games. Remember, this is just my opinion and in no particular order. Number 6. Super Mario World. Okay, I'm starting with this one because it was probably one of the most obvious. The Nintendo consoles are always released with a major new Mario game, and Super Mario World was one of the most iconic. In fact, it's so iconic that the next Super Mario animated movie is going to be named after it. This game featured some of the best elements of the previous Mario games whilst introducing new ones. It was one of the first times we'd really see Yoshi in full effect, and introduced a whole new roster of villains for Mario to face, as well as still featuring all the cool things that you would have enjoyed. I still prefer Super Mario Bros. 3, but it's a classic. Number 5. Super Mario Kart. This game started an absolute legend. Let's be honest, the Mario Kart games are potentially some of the best and most iconic games the Nintendo consoles ever release, and damn near every Nintendo console has had its own. But this is where it all started. Granted, this game doesn't quite hold up in the same way as many of the other SNES games do, but that's only because the other Mario Kart games have continued to improve and evolve so rapidly, and because this game really pushed the console to its limits. You had a solid roster of Mario characters, including characters like Donkey Kong, which we hadn't really seen featured alongside Mario since the original Donkey Kong games. You also had some of the best multiplayer experiences you would ever have in this game. Many friendships were made, and quite frankly, many of them were broken by playing Super Mario Kart. Some of the best games ever came from this one title. Number 4. Street Fighter 2 Turbo. This was a bit of a tricky one to choose. There was always going to be one of the Street Fighter 2 games in here, but I really had to make a decision. Did I go with the original Street Fighter 2, that iconic game that started it all? Did I go for Super Street Fighter 2, the furthest the console ever took the Street Fighter 2 series? Well, in the end, I decided to go in between. Street Fighter 2 Turbo was kind of the peak of Street Fighter 2's popularity, and especially across the 16-bit consoles. This game was perfect for both one-player or two-player gaming. It was perfect for the 16-bit console, and whilst the original Street Fighter 2 was a fantastic game, this game took everything that was in that and fine-tuned it perfectly, as well as bringing in those iconic 4 bosses. Some can argue that Super Street Fighter 2 was even better, and I have no issue with that, but for me, this is where the popularity of the genre really peaked. Number 3. Doom. Now, this is a really weird judgment call. I know a lot of people will disagree with this. Released in 1995 on the SNES, this version of Doom was by far not the best version of the game. If you'd played it on PCs, you would have seen a much better version, and many people were really disappointed or just not a big fan. But for me, personally, I was thrilled to be able to play this on the SNES. It was rare for the Nintendo consoles to get to play a truly gritty, violent and darker type game, and for me, that's exactly what I wanted with this. Yes, the gameplay and graphics was nowhere near as smooth as you would see in some of the other versions of it, but it was still an absolute revelation for me. It was the first time I'd really played the game as well, and maybe that's a factor, but I had seen it played on the PC. I was aware of the SNES's limitations, but I also really admired that this game tried to push it beyond its limitations. In many ways, that's kind of what some of the problems were. It didn't try and narrow itself down, but for me, this was a classic. Number 2. Star Fox. I spoke about Mario Kart and Doom in different ways, pushing the SNES to its limits, maybe beyond, but Star Fox did that in a very unique way, by not just relying on what the console could do, but adding that special FX chip to the actual game. In doing so, Star Fox was able to do things that the SNES and damn near any other console at the time could only really dream of. The massive open 3D graphics within this were spectacular. But it wasn't just the amazing visuals that made this game so good. The gameplay was absolutely amazing too. It was one of the best games this console ever had, and I don't think anyone can really disagree with that, or at least consider it an unreasonable statement. It introduced us to fantastic worlds, ships, and brilliant characters that we would see over the next couple of generations. Realistically, this was one of my all-time favourite games. I played this so much, and because there was multiple different routes you could take through the game, you had plenty of scope to replay, so even when you did complete it, you could just go right back to the start, take a completely different route, and enjoy a completely different adventure. Whether it was Slippy, Falco, Peppy, any of the other characters getting into trouble and you needing to help them, this wasn't just a game. This was an adventure shared with colleagues that would actually speak to you throughout the game. This was one of the best games the SNES ever had, and quite frankly, there's no doubt it belongs on this list. Number 1. Super Mario All-Stars. What could be better than one of the best Mario games ever made, on a console that's perfect for platform games? Well, how about taking 4 of the best Mario games that are ever made, making the graphics even better, the sound even crisper, and making sure that the gameplay is peak? That is exactly what Super Mario All-Stars is. The best version of Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, and The Lost Levels, all on one cartridge. This was the first game I got for the SNES. In fact, this was the game that came with the console when I bought it. And realistically, I could have happily gone a good month or 2 without ever taking the cartridge out. It's just some of the best gaming you could ever have. And to be fair, if we're looking at the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, in many ways platforming, as well as potentially 1v1 fighting games, are really where this console comes into its own. Super Mario All-Stars is a whole bunch of classics, and I couldn't enjoy any game more. If you've liked this video, consider subscribing, put notifications on, and give us a thumbs up. Until next time, take the high ground.